Hello and welcome back to another video. This time we are going to talk about a subgenre of Japanese light novels, which is the Isekai. Now, I find Isekai novels quite interesting because it really kind of takes the hero's journey and it makes it almost instantaneous. So, of course, you see the definition of Isekai in front of you if you are watching this video. And if you just happen to be listening, it basically is a story where the protagonist, where the protagonist is transported to another world. So that's basically it. And so, like, of course, the summarizer here, says that they are tasked with completing a specific mission, but that's not always the case. So, if you watch my recommend video, there is the series By the Grace of the Gods, and there's also Reborn as a Vending Machine. Those ones would not, like, those are ones where I would say they're not tasked with completing a mission. Now, in the case of the one with the vending machine, it kind of like dealing with an enemy kind of comes his way, but it's not like it's the goal of his journey in the first place. Like for him, it is, figuring out how to survive as a vending machine. And by the grace of the gods, it is essentially, him healing from the trauma of his past and just kind of having a life where he can live it any way that he wants and be, as relaxed as possible. So there's no greater calling, there's no greater task or anything like that. So I just kind of want to put that out there because, it's not basically like with writing, period, like nothing is really kind of a one size fits all. But I think a lot of what I find interesting about isekai stories is really just that aspect of it. It is the being transported to another world. It is the kind of swiftness that happens with, what would normally be the act one of a traditional story. Like, with a traditional story, of course, act one is your protagonist being in their regular world, living their regular life, and then having something happen and them having to leave and go out and, or having to decide to go out into the journey, and out into the rest of the world, into the unknown kind of thing. With isekai, it's like it's instantaneous. It all kind of happens at once. You don't ever really get to know too much of what their life was like before they got transported to the other world. So, that normal kind of act one is highly shortened. In many cases, it is in many cases, chapter one is just when they wake up. Like sometimes you might get, what led to them being transported. Either they died in their own world or they got caught in some mysterious magic or, like something like something different happened and it's within the first few paragraphs, and then we are suddenly thrust into this new world and we have to figure it out. So it's like an immediate act two kind of storytelling. So I do find that a bit fascinating, plus too, because, isekai is a subgenre, I do find just the creativity that's involved with the different ways that each author tells the story. Like, I do find that to be very fascinating because, it's one, because it is such a specific category. Like when you think about it, like when you look like here in the West and you look at fantasy, fantasy can encompass a lot of like a lot of different things. Like, you know, you could have your what's called high fantasy, you could have your modern fantasy, you can have, you know, fantasy that borders more on being science fiction. You know, like there's so much there's so much gray area in there. And then, you know, you just have this isekai in Japanese storytelling, which basically is, you know, a newcomer to a new world. And so, yeah, like you'll definitely have a lot of crossovers. So, you know, like I could see it being not too interesting after a while. Like, how do I want to say this? Like, I think if you, I don't know, because like right now I'm not even bored with it. So maybe I don't, maybe I should change that thought. But I think overall, if you were someone who went into the isekai subgenre and you decided to read it, I think after a while it would seem kind of strange. I think that might be the best way to say it. Like I could see it being kind of strange because, you know, it's always the same thing. It's always the same thing. You know, newcomer to the new world. They look different than they did in the regular world. And, you know, now they have to find their way through. And, you know, like stories may vary, but at the end of the day, it's kind of one way of telling a story. And it always kind of ends up being the same way. But then again, I mean, you could also kind of say the traditional way of story of the what we consider traditional storytelling would kind of be the same thing, right? You know, you have that 3 act kind of structure. You have, you know, hero in the regular world, you know, then you have the journey into the unknown, and of course the, you know, the fight against the enemy, and then of course the return home, and you know, you are changed at the end of it, and you may find peace or you may not find peace, you know. So like, yeah, I mean, I guess we can say that, you know, there's nothing new under the sun. I mean, that basically goes without saying. But yeah, like I think that is what I kind of find fascinating because, you know, of the isekai that I'm currently reading, I would say that they're all relatively different. Even if that start happened the same way, even if you know that it is, you know, a Japanese person that, you know, had a life, you know, and kind of died in their life and ended up in this other world, like you still kind of know that, like you still kind of know that even though you may have that beginning that's the same, where you have, you know, them leaving the regular world and coming to the new world, there still usually is so much that is different in the rest of the story because, of course, you know, part of the fantasy is the world building and the world that is created. And so, you know, you will maybe have, you know, the different sort of characters and you know, the different kind of enemy, because maybe the enemy is not the standard enemy. And usually in these isekai, they're like the enemy is sort of the demon king. Like that seems to be a very popular kind of enemy. So, you know, so maybe you might have the traditional demon king enemy and you face his generals kind of thing, you know, or maybe like with By the Grace of the Gods, there's not really that same kind of journey, but you know, you're watching him kind of grow into his own sort of thing. So yeah, I think it sort of is kind of like my fascination right now with Japanese storytelling, where it is it's different. And it is. It's very different from, you know, from Western novels. And I kind of like that difference. You know, like in my recommends, I did a lot of things that I would consider um like much more healing in a way. Like, you might have some action, you might have some things happen, but there's a lot of lightheartedness to it. And so, I think, you know, like in times of stress, I think that those are really like kind of great novels to read. And perhaps and perhaps it's because of the way their lives are in Japan versus what our lives are here in the West. Like, I don't know, but I know that I am interested in exploring it, we'll say. And so, yeah, I don't want this video to get too long, but I just thought that I would talk about it a little bit because I think that, especially for me as a writer, just being able to explore other options of creativity is really just kind of a good idea because I don't think that, because I know that for myself, I don't want to get caught in a hole. Like I don't want to get caught in a place where I feel like I can't find words or I can't, you know, explore creativity or I can't, like, where it becomes harder sort of thing. Like I don't ever want there to be a time where I don't appreciate creativity. Let me say that. And so yeah, like reading Japanese light novels and in particular reading these isekai has just been it's just been interesting because it is taking the same subject and just seeing how someone else does it differently. So yeah, I guess the equivalent would be, sort of a writing prompt in a writing class where, everyone has the same prompt, but the stories that come out of it are different. So yeah, that I guess that might be the best way to put it. So yeah, that's all I have for this video. Certainly, if you are interested in looking up isekai or interested in the subject of isekai, uh, Bookwalker is a good place to go and just kind of look around and explore. And yeah, I really would say if you are someone who loves to read, I would probably, I would probably give it a read. I mean, it's different, and we'll leave it at that. Anyway, thanks for watching the video and sticking with me through this. And of course, if you like it, all that YouTube stuff that, they normally ask for in terms of engagement. And certainly I would appreciate it. There is also my Patreon page if you would look in the description, which would have the link. That's only if you're interested. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.